Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I'd like to read you something from Thomas Kempis, who wrote The Imitation of Christ. He says, how came it to pass? He's talking about mystics who attained contemplation, or who were able to live in God's presence. And he says, how came it to pass that many of the saints were so perfect, so contemplative of divine things? Because they steadfastly sought to mortify themselves from all worldly desires, and so were enabled to cling with their whole heart to God, and be free and at leisure for the thought of Him. We are too much occupied with our own affections and too anxious about transitory things. Seldom, too, do we entirely conquer even a single fault. And so we remain lukewarm and unspiritual. So it says here, let me see if I can break this down a little bit for you. How came it to pass that many of the saints were so perfect? Well, perfect is a process of being perfected in God's light. See, you can't make yourself perfect. But you become perfect through the process of perfecting. It's not where you've ever arrived. Maybe at some time in the future. But now, you don't have to become perfect now. But you need to be on the path. You need to be getting better instead of worse. Most people are getting worse, aren't they? Most people deteriorate. They lose the ideals they once held. They become crass. They become resentful, bitter, selfish, greedy, preoccupied with their own stuff, preoccupied with their own issues. You know, it's sad, really, to the point eventually where they just sit and vegetate. So they're deteriorating mentally, physically, spiritually. Shouldn't be that way. We should be getting better as we get older. Better. Right? So we grow. Souls grow endlessly. So you're either growing better or you're growing worse. You're becoming more patient or less patient, have more understanding, more wisdom, more insights, more realizations. See, more love. So how came it to pass that Christ said, be ye perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect? That's a hard teaching for most people. But all you have to do is be on the path of being perfected. It begins with when the first time you realize your own wrong. Maybe you're yelling at your child, and all of a sudden you take a mental step back and you see your child there crying, or you see your child's face flushed from your pressure. And you look at yourself and you are stricken, saddened by what you see about yourself, what you never saw before. Well, that's how it begins. You see in God's light. So the first thing maybe you see is that you're resentful. See, full of resentment toward everyone, including your own kids, your own partner, toward yourself, toward God. Maybe that's the first thing you see. Well, if you can see that, see, if you see it, and you see that it's not good, and you see that you can't save yourself, You see that you can't make yourself better. You've tried, haven't you, all your self-improvement projects? When you see it and realize it deeply, and yet you don't want to be resentful, you don't want to be hateful, you don't want to yell and scream at your kids, you see that you're helpless, and yet you don't want to be that way, so you regret the way you are while you're seeing the truth in God's light. If you can bear that without running, without resenting seeing it, without excusing yourself or reaching for something to run away from the truth, that's how the process begins. So contemplative of divine things, because they steadfastly sought to mortify themselves from all worldly desires, and so were enabled to cling with their whole heart to God. Well, see, the problem is that in your fallen state, having fallen away, see, you were born fallen, so it's not your fault. You couldn't help the family you were born into. You couldn't help what people did to you as a kid. You couldn't help the nature you inherited, all the way through your parents back to Adam and Eve. But you can see now, as an adult, you can see what you have become. You can regret what you see about yourself. You can stop trying to excuse yourself or to blame someone or to blame God. Stop trying to change yourself. Stop trying to save yourself. See? But what happened was, see, the plant, I keep coming back to the analogy of the plant because it's a very good one. It's more than just an analogy. It's actually a corresponding process. The plant is alive, isn't it? There's something magical and wonderful about being alive. I remember I read the book, A Tour of the Calculus by Budzinski. I can't remember his name now. Beautiful, great book. A Tour of Calculus, or A Tour of the Calculus. It's just it's a good read. No, it wasn't that book. I don't think it was one of his books. And at the very end, after talking about calculus and physics and integration and mathematics and all of that, he said, you can know all the physics in the world, but you still won't understand what life is. It's just something special. But anyway, the plant is alive, and it gets its light from the sun. The sun is the source of the plant's life, light and warmth. Somehow the plant transforms that light and warmth into beautiful roses. Well, the light for the soul is God. And somehow His light, His love, His warmth. See, if you take it in, it transforms you into a beautiful being. See? And seeing, loving Him. See? And discovering more and more about Him. You have less and less of an opinion of yourself. You end up with no opinion of yourself. You just observe, that's all. If you see you did something nice, then you just see it, that's all. You realize that you're not nice. Christ said, why do you call me good? There is none good but my Father in heaven. If you see yourself do something bad, you see that it's bad, it's wrong, it's an error. You regret seeing it. You regret that you see it, but you just see it. You realize you can't make yourself good. And you wait upon God. If anyone's going to change you, it's going to have to be Him. When you see someone else that does something nice, well, you see that it's nice, but you don't put them on a pedestal and say, oh, what a wonderful person. They just did something nice, that's all. If you see them do something bad, then you see they did something bad, you discern it, but you don't judge them for it. You don't hate them for it. You don't puff up, think yourself better for it. You just observe. See? And so, but meanwhile, living in God's light, every day you meditate. A proper meditation. See? It's only when you're ready, when you really want to know the truth, somehow deep down in your heart. It's a mystery that you're ready. Then you'll be attracted to and find the proper meditation. One that's not based on concepts and images. One that is a pure teaching you how to observe, pure observation. See, being able to stand back from your thoughts and observe thoughts without being lost in them. To stand back from your emotions and see there's something wrong with them and not be lost in them. To stand in quiet disagreement to what you see that's wrong with yourself. And to be patient with others, not to hate them when you see their errors. But proper meditation. It teaches you how to draw closer to God. That's what it does. But only when you want to know the truth. See? Even though it might be painful, but you want to know the truth. Well, see, then it'll work for you. So you meditate every day. You go out into the world and you have insights, realizations. You see things. Sometimes you can't even put words upon what you see, but you just see. And every day you learn a little bit of something. Every day you see things. It's not even learning. It's more unlearning. You see your attachments to things. How this is too important and that is too important. You see how this catches your attention. That catches your attention. How you see yourself rushing for something. You see yourself being selfish, rushing to be first in line. Okay? You see yourself secretly judging another person. You see all of that. You just see it every day, a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. And you also see beautiful truths, shining truths. Now living in God's light. Light bears witness to what is true. So you pick up a little Thomas à Kempis, or you pick up the New Testament, open it up and you read something. Oh, now you see. You understand. Or you hear a preacher on the radio say something. Maybe he doesn't understand what he's saying, but you see it. Why? Because you have the presence within who bears witness. Wordlessly says, yes, that's true. So every day you grow in grace, in God's grace. And you, in His patience, and His forgiveness, and His understanding, and His kindness. And you realize that you live and move and have your being. He gives you the power to live. If He were to withdraw it, you would fall like a stone. You would fall like a sack of bricks upon the ground. So Paul said, in Him we live and move and have our being. Yes, even people that aren't so good, even rotten people, He gives them life. He gives them the power to breathe and to think and to see and to hear. It's beautiful. When you see all of that, okay? So it humbles you. Not because you become a humble person. You're just a regular person. But how can you possibly have a great idea of yourself in God's light? You can't. So it simplifies life. There's nothing you have to do other than just do the little meditation and go about your business and see things and realize things. It's just beautiful. You become like a little child again. Remember when you were a little child? Before they start pressuring you, which maybe you can't remember because nowadays they start pressuring you when you're very, very little. But maybe you can remember when you were a child. Even if they were pressuring you, you still had moments. You had days, you had hours. When you leapt from bed in the morning and rushed forward to a day of discovery, there was nothing you had to do other than just be and see. And you discovered and you realized and learned at lightning speed. Didn't you? It's beautiful. Well, that's how you become again. That's exactly how it's going to be. Okay. So I think, so where was I? Well, yeah, but you see what happens though, when we have fallen away from God, when we've fallen away from God, then remember I said that the sunlight the plant absorbs the sunlight, absorbs the water, absorbs the minerals. Well, our ego has to absorb to exist, to live, to grow. And we do have to grow. Our soul has to grow. But when you're not turned to God, when you're not absorbing from Him, we were meant to be children of God, to live eternally in God's light. So, having fallen away, you couldn't help it. When you were a little child, you were upset. You were turned to the outside by your reactions to people's cruelty and their meanness and their tease and their pressure. They're wanting something from you and pulling on your heartstrings and emotionalizing you, see. So then you began to need from the outside to complete your ego, which they were making you, see, without God. So you compensated and you absorbed. You became absorptive. So you absorbed. And the more you absorbed, the more you needed. Nothing was ever satisfying. So you absorbed. You became hungry. Hungry for love, hungry for excitement, hungry for stimulation, hungry. See? So in the Bible it says, blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Well, some of us, we're hungry, we're greedy, we see ourselves groveling into dirt. Just like the prodigal son, remember? He was groveling into dirt, in the pigsty. And he thought, he saw himself. But at the same time, he realized, this is not good. And he remembered his father. And he went back to his father. Well, that's the way we are, we prodigal sons and daughters. You see yourself one day groveling in the dirt, in the mud, in the filth. See, sucking up marijuana and drugs and alcohol and lusting after and needing things to serve as distractions and to somehow buttress and fortify your ego, craving support, craving reassurance from others. And you see that, and you think, wouldn't it be nice? But deep in your heart, there's something more than that. See? And you begin searching. See? And you find your way back to the Father. Or He hears your cry when your cry is sincere. Maybe even before it's sincere, He hears your cry. And He sends some of His light. He begins to enter your life with a little bit of light. And He arranges things sometimes so that things fall away. See, some job that you have is not good for you. All of a sudden you get fired. It seems like a bad thing, but it's not. Because it's too much. It's absorbing you too much. See? So it falls away. And then one day you pick up the little meditation. You don't even know why. You just pick it up. You sit down. Now all of a sudden you're ready. And the journey begins. Okay? Back to your Father. Well, the video is 20 minutes long. I think that's long enough. So I'm going to stop at this point. My name is Roland.